Okay, so joining us now is the man behind those brilliant memories, England manager Gareth Southgate. Good morning, Gareth.
Good morning, Gareth.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. How you all doing?
Gareth, we're
Great.
We've been anticipating this all morning. Everyone's been getting very overexcited.
Gareth, I mean, listen, it's been a really tough year, 2020. We know we're still going through it now. But do you reckon we can recapture some of the joy, obviously, after the 2018 summer, the World Cup?
Well, I think the beer's back on the day after the Czech Republic game, wasn't it? So,
so yes,
I'm slightly less for throwing it around rather than drinking it. But I think we've look, if we can play a part in the country getting back its energy, its enthusiasm for life, its enjoyment, you know, the beauty of the international tournaments, and of course we have an incredible league, and everybody's hugely passionate about their clubs, and rightly so. And you have certain moments of the season where nobody gives a monkeys about international football, frankly. You know, normally when I'm having to pick a squad and get released of players. But I think the major tournaments are national events. You know, the whole family sit and watch them. We all go through that roller coaster. I can think back to watching Scotland in '78 in Argentina, and England in '82 in Spain, and all those memories that you share as a family, that those key international moments stick with you. And I think we're ready for that. You know, I think the country are ready for that enjoyment and that excitement about some sport.
Something to add to that is reports this morning that Boris has given his backing for Britain to actually host the entire tournament. What effect do you think that would have on your team, on England, if they did?
Well, we obviously have our group matches at Wembley anyway, so we're hugely looking forward to that. We've got our fingers crossed that we keep progressing as we are, and there could be some fans back in the stadium. That would be the first step. And then everything else is a bit up in the air, really. Of course, at the moment, we're being told the tournament will stay in its current format. You would imagine if there is an option for one country to host, we'll be well placed with a couple of other countries to be able to do that. But yeah, we've got to, as a team, we've got to remember that just hosting is not a great guarantee of success. There's only France really that have done that in European Championships, hosted and won. So you don't win just because you're the host. We won't win just because our group matches are at Wembley. We've got to play well, and we've got to be as prepared as we possibly can be.
I do want to take you back to Euro '96 a little bit, just to think about the circle that you've almost come on. It's coming full circle for you specifically. When you were playing, did you have these ideas to one day lead your country out? And when you reflect back on it now, you must do it with an immense sense of pride.
To have been able to play for England was my only ambition when I was a kid. And so to have been able to do that, fulfill that, I couldn't say when I was a kid being manager was the ambition, because you don't think that far ahead. And when I was coming towards the end of my playing career, yes, I wanted to go into coaching, but I didn't really know where that would lead. So to have been manager of your country, it's such a privileged position. You know, you have such a, responsibility, but also the chance to influence the game in your country and the honour of it. You know, I look at Sir Bobby and Terry Venables and Sir Ralph and people that have been able to do it before. And, you know, it's a humbling thing to be a part of. So there's that part that will be with me and my family forever. But of course, you want to win things. You know, you want to produce a winning team that excites people, and in the main, we've been able to do that. I think in the autumn we had a sticky period where we didn't have a lot of our players available, and I don't think we were quite as connected with everybody as we might have been in the past. But we're hugely looking forward to March. We've got 3 big World Cup qualifiers, of course, in March. Because we're only less than 18 months away almost from a World Cup as well. So it's an amazing period for international football.
I imagine that you know exactly what's coming.
Yeah.
You've not got, I don't know, people call it a headache, but I suppose it's in a way a good headache to have when you're talking about the plethora of talent that you have in one particular role, the number 10. So tell us a little bit about what this means to a manager when you see all of this. I mean, it's Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, James Maddison, Sancho, Mason Mount, so many more can be named. So much talent. How do you squeeze them all in, and is it a headache?
Well, I can remember being at Middlesbrough playing Tottenham, and we were, I think, 2-1 up in a game. And Harry Redknapp put Robbie Keane and Dimitar Berbatov on. And I looked at my bench and I had 5 kids from the academy. Now that's a headache because you're thinking, well, I'm not quite sure how we turn this game around and improve what we've got on the field. When you've got a choice of some outstanding talent, now that's, yeah, of course, it's there's big decisions you have to make. But in the end, you know, some of these decisions are sadly taken out of your hands. I mean, if I look at the squad for March, we're already without Joe Gomez, Jordan Henderson, Harvey Barnes, James Justin, we think has been doing exceptionally well at Leicester, is going to be out. So, you know, how many of these guys, there are others who aren't playing at the moment. And then actually it's just a case of, right, who's playing the best? Who do we think has the pedigree? Who's performed at the high level before? Coupled with who's in form, who fits into the way we want to play with and without the ball. So yes, of course, there's a lot of talent in those attacking areas. What's really exciting, you know, for years, I think we talked about development in English football and where are the creative players? How do we develop those types of players? We've had root and branch reviews of everything from, you know, grassroots football to academy football to everything for decades. And we've now, I think, huge credit to the clubs, but also even junior football. When I go and watch junior football played on the local parks, when we're able to, the style that kids play, the skill level. You know, you go into the cages in the cities and see the talent. There's raw talent, and there's a different type of player, different skill level coming through, which is hugely exciting.
That's what I was going to say to you, Gareth. It must give you great pride looking at, which is, in my opinion, the best league in the world by some considerable distance, I think, Gareth. And it is, you know, saturated with young English talent, because had it not been, clearly it might have given you another problem.
Yeah, well, only 18 months or so ago, every Saturday, we were about 30% of the league, English qualified players. This year, that's up to 40%. And that doesn't seem a lot. But when you think that the likes of perhaps an Emil Smith-Rowe, for example, getting his opportunity at Arsenal, those sorts of opportunities, we know those kids are there. We know the talent is there. But of course, when the buying and spending power of the clubs is greater than anything around Europe, and the pressure is on to have immediate success, it's much easier and quicker to go and buy a finished product from abroad who's got a handful of, you know, a couple of seasons behind them. And so there was always this blockage, if you like, for young English players going in. Now they're getting their chance and they're showing, you know, those two boys at Arsenal, as an example, Saka and Smith-Rowe, have been a huge breath of fresh air in their team. And there are more across the country if they get the opportunity.
Gareth, we've seen obviously a few youngsters from England maybe struggle to break into their first team. So you look at, obviously, Jude Bellingham was brilliant at Birmingham, but he went to Dortmund. Jadon Sancho. I mean, is that something that you'd encourage, obviously, for young players to go abroad, get that experience so they can flourish?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant life experience as much as anything. You know, when you're talking about young lads having to adapt to living away from home, learning a different language, learning a different football culture. Those boys are playing at a big club, you know, when the crowd are in 80,000 every week at Dortmund, playing Champions League football. So very often the kids that grow up in Croatia or Portugal, you know, they're countries that know they have to develop players to move them on, and they get those big experiences playing league football and competitive football really early. And I think, you know, some of our kids have decided, okay, that's a good route to go. When I watch the German league, which we watch quite a lot now because of Jadon and Jude and Ryan Sessegnon's out there, and we've had some others, it's a great league for young players, especially because you've got the games against the Bayern Munichs and Leipzig and a really high, but you've also got some teams that wouldn't be high up in the Premier League, where those boys can play a bit freer. They can get more opportunities in front of goal. So for development, it's almost perfect.
Yeah, because I was going to say as well, for European football as well, like England international tournaments, these young players playing in European leagues, do you think that could give England the edge, as in terms of experience playing in these European leagues?
Well, it's something that we've lacked in the past. And I think you also get to play against players that we didn't know about in the past. So there was always a bit of a fear of the unknown. Whenever you played Brazil, you never played against their players until it came to a World Cup. You never saw them. That's why we're always excited about tuning in to watch them during a World Cup. Now you see them around Europe. You play against them in the Champions League, perhaps. Those boys might play against them in league matches. And there's less of that fear of the unknown. And I think that's, you see how many of the top European players come and play in our league. So they get that all-round development. Now our players are starting to do that. We've got Kieran Trippier, of course, at Atletico Madrid, top of the league. So there's more players taking that step. Fikayo is on loan at Milan. It's a great loan. He could have gone somewhere in England, but he's now playing at a huge club in some matches right at the top of the table. So again, people are thinking a bit differently about it, I think.
So with that in mind, you're watching football in Italy, in Germany, you and your team having to keep an eye on all these Premier League matches, you yourself obviously visiting the stands as well to keep an eye on players in this country too. How much football are you having to consume at the moment? And do you have any time for anything else?
Well, my wife would say too much for certain. So, but yeah, I mean, there's, the interesting thing at the moment, of course, the games are spread across the week. They're spread across different kickoff times. So there's never been a better opportunity to track all of our players. We get footage now, even if we're not live at the game, widescreen footage. So, we've been a bit conscious of not traveling north to south in the current climate, and Steve Holland and myself box off the games north and south where we can. But we're watching everything. And if we're not watching it live, we're picking up individual players' footage and highlights as well. Because in the end, having a really clear picture of your players, of course, everybody watches their own team every week. And that's why fans will always push their own players and feel that their players are the best in a particular position. And we've got that broader view of how everybody's performing at a given time, and a bit more understanding of the individuals as well. And that's that's a big part of our job. We've got to make sure we get the right people in that squad to be able to be successful.
Do you worry about the number of injuries that are happening, muscle injuries, because of the way that the fixtures are coming? It's almost becoming a given. Managers are saying, well, we have to kind of expect it now. Does it concern you?
Well, I think we've been worried about it all season, really. We knew a very short break at the end of last season, so not the normal sort of preparation. And the condensed season was always going to be challenging for everybody. I think the clubs have tried to manage that as best they can. But it's not so much the muscle injuries that worry me, it's those more serious ones that you run the risk of as fatigue sets in and players are going out with fatigue, or they're playing with existing injuries. So, I mentioned 4 or 5 players that we know are out now. We've still got another 5 rounds of matches if you include the European and the midweek games before we play in March. So I think in the league, the bigger squads are benefiting from that. There's no doubt about that. And in the summer, we've got to make sure we get the right balance of psychologically refreshing everybody, giving them some time to relax for a few days, not straight into camp and straight into another pressured environment, because it's not just the games at the moment, it's the unusual environment at training grounds, at traveling to games on separate buses to your teammates, sitting in meetings with face masks on, that it's just an unusual environment for the players. And I think we all recognise we're fortunate the game is still going. So that's a privilege that some other people haven't got in their own work. But it doesn't mean that it's less challenging for the players. And when we're preparing the team in the summer, we've got to get those things right.
you and Ali both on the show together, it feels like we have to really look back on some very famous moments, particularly 25 years ago at Wembley. Gareth, you started the game while Ali, you came off the bench. Gareth, what are your memories? I can't believe it's 25 years ago, can I just say as well.
Me,
So which part killed you, the 25 years or the part where I said you came off the bench?
Well, to be fair, I was 47 when I came off the bench. So that's
Gareth, talk to us about that, because we were asking earlier on about home advantage and the atmosphere. What was it like back then?
Well, I heard Ali earlier talking about the fact that actually the tournament started a bit slowly for us. We got a draw with Switzerland, didn't play particularly well. We were on the back of a bit of a hoo-ha in Hong Kong, as you might recall. And
that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. So and the game with Scotland, we didn't play well in the first half at all. And part of the reason for that was because I was in midfield and Terry managed to move me out of there and get me to the back. Put Jamie Redknapp in midfield. And in actual fact, people talk about Jamie changing that game, but I watched the rerun in the summer. And I mean, there were two parts. Steve McManaman, who fantastic player, really underrated. I think sometimes people forget what a good player he was and what he did going to Real Madrid. And so there was that. And then obviously Ali coming off the bench was the final straw for Scotland, really, that swung it in our favour. So, but the game hung on 2 minutes, really, where Gary McAllister's penalty, and then obviously we break up the other end and Paul Gascoigne's goal. But really fine margin. Scotland probably, certainly in the first half played better than we did that day.
Whose idea was the dentist chair celebration? You must know.
Well, that was Gaza.
Was it all his idea?
Well, I think Gaza, Steve McManaman, Robbie Fowler. The thing that I can never believe is you score a goal like that, and the first thing you can think of is actually to go and do it. It kind of tells you a bit about how calm his thinking is in a way that, any of the rest of us that scored that goal would have been doing laps of Wembley, and there he is. He's straight away clicked into, no, I've got to do this celebration. It was an amazing goal and an amazing moment, really.
Yeah. You must get drawn into these conversations so much and asked all these questions because you knew Gaza so well, and now you're managing players where the likes of Foden and Grealish have been compared to him. Do you think they're unfair comparisons, or do you think the similarities are actually compliments?
Well, they should take them as a compliment for sure. I mean, Ali played with Paul a lot more than I did. I played with him with England for sort of 3 or 4 years, and probably his best spell with England was 90 before the knee injuries, took some of that sort of strength and speed. But you're talking about a player, sometimes we talk about a good passer or a player that can score goals from midfield or a good dribbler, but he could do all of those things. And there were some fantastic players I played with England, Steven Gerrards, Wayne Rooney's, Paul Scholes. But Gascoigne, for me, Gascoigne in terms of talent and ability was the best.
We have been really enjoying your insight this morning. It's been fascinating. The hour is nearly gone and it's gone so quickly, and so many more questions to ask you. People have been sending their messages in. Our listeners have been tweeting in and want to put their questions to you. So I've got a couple to read out now. Tommy in Swindon says, Gareth, a lot of talk this morning about a 2030 UK and Ireland World Cup. How amazing would it be if we would be able to host a World Cup for the first time since 1966?
Well, that would be, I think for everybody, that would be an amazing experience. And I think the other, it's not perhaps as eye-catching, but I think there's 25 million this morning put towards grassroots pitches. And given where we're at the moment and the need for facilities for kids, at the moment, it's heartbreaking every weekend to see empty pitches. But actually, when we're back up and getting ourselves back on our feet, sport for kids and getting kids engaged again in playing sport is going to be so important for us, health, well-being, everything. So that sort of sum going into facilities is really important as well.
Gareth, I was going to ask you, in terms of chilling out. I know Boris got a mention there earlier on. I think certainly down in England, you and Boris are unique in the position. You're both doing jobs that probably every person in England think they could do better. That's just one of these things. It goes with the territory. I'm sure you probably agree. But getting away from it, you spoke about maybe getting time with your family. What do you do? Do you watch a bit of television? Do you watch any Netflix series or anything like that?
Well, I think we were like everybody during that first lockdown. You know, we ploughed through. I remember we were watching at the time The Last Dance, and there was a brilliant one about the Australian cricket team, and we've been through The Crown.
Test.
So you know, I don't know where we'd have been without some of that. Really,
I know.
Gareth, we always ask this question to Ali McCoist because there's a clamour from the public to get him on some sort of a reality TV show. I think he should go on Dancing on Ice, but he's not sure about that one. But here's a question. John from Liverpool sent in a question for you. If you could appear on one reality TV show, which one would it be?
Well, I like, in a sort of perverse way, the SAS one, where
Ant Middleton's one. Yes.
Yeah, pretty hardcore. I could see Ali on Strictly. He's got the moves that I haven't. You know, the rhythm.
You saw that Jules Holland, didn't you? The New Year's Eve dancing with Jules Holland. That one's got him on a few shows. So we're sticking you on the SAS show, are we? I know that the producers are going to be listening this morning. Ant Middleton's come on this show before. That is a request, not a request so much, but it's definitely a door open for them, isn't it? Would you genuinely go on that then?
Well, no, frankly, it's not a door open for them at all.
Okay. Gareth, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for being so honest and so open. We wish you the best of luck as well, because what an opportunity to have a brilliant summer. You're leading them in the right direction. So thank you so much for coming on.